am I going to learn something? Am I going to have fun? And can it help me grow? Right? Those are the three things that I just live by. And all I need is 2 out of the 3 to basically say, sure, why not?
Welcome to the Plett podcast. This is basically just an excuse for me to sit down and have a conversation with people that I find interesting. And joining me today is GeNie Baffoe. GeNie is a dancer, he is a DJ, he's an actor, a father, and a husband.
Facts.
And he's also one of my friends.
Bigger facts.
Welcome here, GeNie.
Thank you for having me.
For people that don't know you or have never met you, how do you introduce yourself? How do you tell them like what you do?
So I can definitely answer that question. The first thing I want to do is, going forward, I will introduce myself as someone who enjoys this hot chocolate. Well done with the oat milk.
We got some.
It's really good.
We got some oat milk, hot chocolate. Here at the Plett podcast, we spare no expense. Yeah, we do it just right. Yeah, oat milk, hot chocolate.
100%. But as for everything prior to this moment today, I am a street dancer, originally born and raised in Montreal, Quebec. Came to Winnipeg in 2006. I've been teaching dance since 2009. So I'm coming up on my 14th or 15th this year. All over the city of Winnipeg, East Coast, West Coast, in the States. And it's just been a wild ride of just dancing and music 24 hours a day, full time, since I decided to just jump off the diving board and do this as a living, for a living, I should say, back in 2012. And now, since the pandemic and COVID, I've added DJing to my repertoire. Wow. Because during the pandemic, being in my room by myself, I was like, if I don't figure something to do right now, like I'm gonna go crazy. So sure. I borrowed my friend's DJ controller, and I was just in my room just, well, what does this do? What does this do? And I came out of it as a DJ. So now, playing shows, doing socials, weddings, across Winnipeg and in Austin, Texas, where we've been for a while. And and when it comes to teaching dance, what separates me from other instructors is I teach hip hop dance with cultural context, right? So not only just the moves, because obviously they're fun, but the history of them, why they are the way they are, why they behave the way they behave, why the culture and the style moves the way it does. I add that to my classes as well, and that's something I'm really passionate about.
Wow. Okay. So much to unpack.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I remember during the pandemic seeing kind of your Instagram posts sort of start to shift and change as like DJing started to get incorporated into it. And I was like, oh yes, this is happening. This is kind of cool, because I knew you as a dancer. I mean, I knew you as an actor and as a musician and stuff, but also sort of seeing the DJing kind of come to the forefront was really, really cool. Yeah,
definitely. And the way that I did that, it's kind of like the way that I do everything, which is I'm just going to dive in like head first, and just if I fall flat on my face, we'll see what happens. So I was teaching at Techvoc High School when the pandemic started, right?
Okay, where's that?
Techvoc High School is off of Notre Dame.
Here in Winnipeg?
Yeah. Okay. McPhillips, between McPhillips and Wall Street, there's a big old technical vocational high school in Winnipeg. And I was doing the dance program there. And when the pandemic hit, all the kids were sent home, but a teacher still had to report to the building, right? So before the whole Zoom classes and online classes started, we would just send homework through email to the students, right?
Yeah.
But once I hit send on the email, it's like 9:05 and I'm here till 3:30. So what do I do? So I brought the DJ controller to school and I did a lunchtime mix, right? So I basically went on Instagram Live and I said from 12 to 12:30, I'm going to play live on Instagram and I'm taking requests. Right?
Yeah.
So that was the way that it forced me to practice, and through requests coming in through Instagram Live, it forced me to have to figure out how to get from Salt and Pepper to ABBA really quickly, like, because people were just like trying to challenge me. I said like, okay, I'm doing Lizzo right now. Give me something weird. They want Thriller. I got to find a way to get to Thriller now, So that really gave me the skill set and a wide range of what I can play and how I can transition from certain things. And it worked out. And honestly, it gave me the skill set that I have now to be able to play for almost any crowd at any moment in time and take requests live on the spot in any situation, right? So, and DJing was just kind of like a natural progression for me. I was like, in hip hop, we know about the 4 elements, right? DJing, MCing, breaking, graffiti art. So it was just a matter of time before I added another element to my repertoire, right?
Yeah.
DJing was the natural next evolution, right?
Yeah.
As a hip hop dancer and event coordinator, I've thrown hip hop events for over a decade now, and I just hire DJs. And the whole time, no disrespect to them, but I was always just like, that looks really cool, and I feel like if I tried, I could probably do that. Right? And when I started, I was like, oh, this is actually way harder than I thought it was. But also extremely fascinating, interesting, and fulfilling. So,
Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning. So where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I'm born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, in Montreal. November 19th, 1990, 1:41 p.m. Fattest baby on record at 12 pounds, 3 ounces.
Shout out to mom. Ever since.
That's what I do. And I come to find out, last 3 years, actually, my mom told me, she's like, hey, I just want to let you know, you're number 2 now. And I'm like, who had the audacity to beat me out? And some girl was born in like 2013 at 13 pounds or something like that with C-section or whatever. But so born and raised in Montreal, growing up there, fully bilingual, going to French schools my entire life.
Okay.
And dance came into the picture late. I was 12, 13 years old. And I mean, I tell the story all the time. It was my big sister who was a dancer first, and I saw her.
Okay.
And I was like just mesmerized and fascinated with it. And
How old?
I was about 12 or 13.
12
right?
or 13.
Which in regards to dance, like a kid learning dance is late, right?
Yeah.
Like usually kids come into dance, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, right?
Yeah.
So I came in just seeing one aspect of it and being like, what is that one aspect, right? Like
Okay.
she was doing a lot of traditional African, some hip hop in there.
Okay.
But it was the hip hop moves that my eyes were directed towards.
Okay.
But I didn't really know what it was called, right? Like, you don't grow up going, oh, that's hip hop. At least back in the day, you're just growing up going, oh, that's cool. What is that?
Where in Montreal did you grow up?
La Salle, the south side of the island, right? The southernmost side of the island is a section of Montreal called La Salle, right?
Okay.
So I would say it's about maybe just over a quarter of the size of Winnipeg by itself, right?
Okay.
And it was a really cool place to grow up, like with Montreal compared to Winnipeg, obviously, like there's lots of hills, lots of parks, grew up playing basketball. So there's basketball courts every 5 seconds, you know what I'm saying, right? So that was really, really cool, doing sports. And then when dance came along, now we were at the basketball courts, like either dancing or playing basketball and kind of going back and forth.
Okay.
So, and then at the age of about 15, my dad got his doctorate degree in social work and got a job at the University of Manitoba.
Okay.
And then said, we're moving to Winnipeg. Having to leave everything I'd ever known behind on the spot.
Yeah.
And my first question to him was just like, what's Winnipeg? Right? And he's like, it's in Manitoba. And I said, that doesn't help me. What is that? Right?
Yeah.
Pulls out a map of Canada and he's like, this thing. I'm like, oh, okay. So we moved here. I landed here in August of 2006 and went to Glenlawn Collegiate in St. Vital. Made some friends there, graduated, and then here we go.
Okay. And you brought dance with you when you came?
Yes, I did. So I was probably freestyling in the parks for about 2-ish years before moving.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that, I thought it was done. Like I thought, oh, that was a cool little thing I was doing. But now moving away from all my friends who I was doing it with, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to dance again, right?
Yeah. Sorry, how old were you when you moved?
By that point, I'm 15.
Moved at 15.
15, everything you've ever known.
What is that,
restart.
grade 8, grade 9?
I went into grade 10 here at Glenlawn Collegiate. And it was just like, completely having to start from scratch with life.
I also did a move at grade 10. I moved from, we were living in Sudan. And that's when we moved to Ontario. So I moved from like this sort of expat, international. I went to an American school in Sudan. Amazing group of people, amazing group of friends. It's a really, really multicultural, just a cool group of people.
Yeah.
And then I moved to north of Toronto, this small town, which is kind of like
Barrie or like further north?
Stouffville.
Okay.
Stouffville. Yeah, just north of Markham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Stouffville's like, it's what they call like a bedroom community.
Okay.
Well, like people sleep in Stouffville and they work in Toronto. Right, like it's not like a suburb. It's like there's like a green belt in between Toronto and Stouffville.
Yeah.
But it was mad culture shock. I mean, I'd done that sort of switching back and forth before, but going to that environment, it just threw me.
It's tough. Because you talk about culture shock. It's like everything you've known to be true almost.
Yeah.
And now it's this whole, like, just
and especially at that age.
Yeah.
Grade 10.
Yeah. Your formative years, your personality really solidifying, and it's like, okay, this thing that I've been working on that is me, is it even going to work in this place? How am I going to be perceived? Like, there's just so much, even if you don't go anywhere, you're going through that as a, you know, a 15, 16-year-old, right? But, you know, small things like just downtown activity, right? Like, I'm from Montreal, like, we're downtown all the time. Like, and I remember, like, landing and going to my first class, and I was just trying to figure out where to get a haircut. Like, where do black people go to get haircuts here in Winnipeg, right? And this guy was like, oh, there's a guy named Smitty, he's downtown. I was like, okay, cool, how do I get there? He's like, well, you don't want to go downtown. Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course I want to go downtown. He's like, no, like, you don't go downtown here in Winnipeg. Just that aspect of him, like, well, what is it about it that, you know, and I go and I'm like, what's the problem, right? But it's just like, just the difference in how they let the days pass by. One of the biggest things for me, culture shock was, is that I remember walking by the gym one day, and I saw the kids in the gym playing this game that I'd never seen before, right? And I sat there and I watched for a while, and I'm like, what is this? And to me, I was like, it looked like really high badminton, right? Okay. And with this big white ball with these like shaped things on it, and they're like tossing it back and forth, and I've never seen this game in my life, right? I'm watching it for like 20 minutes, and the funny thing was, just the hour before I had gym class where I was playing basketball, because I know that sport, right? And I was doing well, you know, just smoking cats and basketball in the gym. And so the hour after, I had, you know, what they call like your free period or whatever, your spare, right? I'm watching this game being played, and one of the guys is like, yo, aren't you the athletic guy why don't you come play with us? So I've been watching this game for 20 minutes, right? For those of you that are listening, it was volleyball. Okay. So because I've been watching and studying, I'm like, I think I'm ready to do this, right? So I noticed they do this thing where they like push the ball up, and then someone flies in the air and just like smacks this thing into the ground. I'm like, I really like that part, right? So I'm there and I'm watching them go back and forth and do the thing. And then one guy goes, GeNie, this one's yours. And he hits it up. I'm like, oh, I'm so ready. So I run up, do my 2-foot gather, rise. I grab the ball, I just palm it, and I look for an open space in midair, and I just throw it down, right? And then I was like, yeah, because I know they do this high five thing after it. I was like, yeah. And they're all like, hey, man, why don't you just have a seat right here? And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was it. I never played volleyball again, right? But like, just realizing that, like, why wasn't this sport taught, or I never experienced it in Montreal at all, right? Wild. So like, just small things like that I'm like, this is like a whole new world, you know what I mean? So it was a whole adjustment, just having to make a whole new set of friends. And
how was that? Was it easy for you to make friends?
So the way I did that, I was actually really lucky because Glenlawn.
Where's Glenlawn?
Glenlawn is in St. Vital. It's on like Fermor and St. Mary's Road.
Sort of like suburban.
Yeah, it's a suburb. Yeah, it's like technically an old St. Vital, right? What they call old St. Vital, because new St. Vital is like St. Vital Center and further south. Right? Anyway, I was lucky because Glenlawn only had grade 10 to 11, where I'd heard that other schools had 9 to 12. We only had 10 to 12. So everybody coming in was brand new, right? From like the feeder schools.
Okay.
But I was brand new because
I hadn't been to Winnipeg.
I hadn't been to Winnipeg. So all the other kids from like all these different elementary schools, they've known each other through their sporting events in junior high, they called it, right? But I was like the new kid from like out of province, right? So I was interesting by default. Okay. Plus my name was Eugene. They were like, we never heard that name before. So that took me far. But then I was like, it can only take me so far of just being the new kid who speaks French and all this other stuff, right? So what I did was, even before I moved, I was, in basketball, getting into dance, but I was also getting into magic tricks at the same time, right? Cool. And I always carried a deck of cards with me, so I just started just doing magic tricks at lunchtime. In the school, in the cafeteria. I had my own table, and it just kind of became more and more popular over time. And I almost had a lunchtime show. Like I would just sit there, and I'd have like 30 just kids from all grades just waiting to see what I would do next. I would pull in people, be like, all right, pick a card, it's behind your head, like all kinds of stuff, coin gone, like I had the whole thing. Oh my goodness. Until I just really gained popularity that way, right?
Wow.
And then now that I've gained popularity.
And did you have there's a level of, you got to be like outgoing, charismatic, all that stuff. Did you have that already in Montreal?
Yes, yeah. And dance is what allowed
Your
me
whole
to
life?
discover that, at least, maybe not my whole life, but dance allowed me to find that side of myself.
Okay.
Right? So before dance, it was like I was just, knee deep in Pokemon Red on my Game Boy. Like that was that, right?
Okay.
So it's hard to figure out if you're an extrovert or if you're charismatic when you're just down here just playing with the Game Boy, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw my sister dance and I looked up and I started to learn and actually express myself, now I'm like, oh, I think I'm actually an expressive individual.
Yeah.
I think this is who I'm actually meant to be, as opposed to just, not a nerd, but like a gamer or something like that,
Yeah, just like a kid.
So I brought that charisma over. Dance allowed me to discover myself more and more and more. And with hip hop being a freestyle based art form, like I'm literally creating on the spot and therefore almost creating my own character on the spot, right?
Yeah.
So the charisma shined through with the magic tricks at lunchtime, and I'm meeting people, talking to people outside of my lunchtime shows and all that. And then all of a sudden now it's like every year the school has what they call grade wars, right? So each grade competes against each other for a whole week on various events.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
At Glenlawn it was called Spirit Week, right? And the very last event of the week on Friday is dance off. So every grade enters 2 dance numbers, and then you compete or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So the 7 other black kids in my grade just approached me as the final one and said, hey, we're gonna start a crew to enter dance off. We're sure you dance, right? And we're like, I mean, you're right, but I am offended. It's like, yeah, you are correct, but
you're not wrong.
You're not wrong, but we need to talk about this. Right? That's totally fine. So we got together, and I went to the first practice. And
you're like, yes, I'm going to see. First off, this is a bit of a learning opportunity for you.
Yeah.
But also, yes, I will totally do the dance.
Yeah. Well, what do you need, right? It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm upset and extremely excited at the same time, right? Went to our first practice at Windsor Park because one of our crewmates, so to speak, his mom was the principal at the other high school, so we got to use the gym for free whenever we wanted to practice, right? And I got to the first practice and just like nothing was going on, right? Like there was no quote unquote sense of leadership, nobody being like, okay, we're gonna step this way and step that way. So I was just like, hey, y'all wanna try and do this? And they were like, yeah. Okay, then we could do this. And I just ended up being the choreographer of the situation.
Wow.
So I actually ended up choreographing the entire number in the end, a whole 3-minute piece. We competed and we won. We beat out the grade 11 number, we beat out the grade 12 number, which had like b-boys spinning on their head and stuff like that. And then we won all 3 years that we were in high school with me as one of the head choreographers of the crew, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So this is all just to say that like it was very easy for me to eventually just make friends because I was the new kid from out of province.
Yeah.
I spoke French, I could dance, I could play basketball. There was just a lot of things that I had going for me. And just being generally loud and class clown type situation, right? I ended up doing the morning announcements for my last 2 years of high school. So I was like a real vocal piece of the school, So yeah, my high school years were a good time.
My move to like, my grade 10 move could not have been like more different.
I'm so sorry.
I had no sense of perspective in this environment. I couldn't socially navigate, and like I was so quiet, and I had like my backpack, and I always wore, I don't know if at that point, probably, I'm guessing I was wearing some sort of like military jacket or something, right? People just thought I was a drug dealer. And I'm like this kid who like, I like grew up like a sheltered life, like in Africa, so like I didn't know like anything about drugs. I didn't know anything about this war.
Like what are you even talking about? That I'm supposed to be right now.
That was a rough year actually. But then what happened was, so that environment, I couldn't find a way. It sounds like what you're able to do, like whether it's the environment or it's you found a way to unlock yourself. It's funny that some people, school, either it sort of stops them from becoming themselves or it helps them. Helps them become themselves. So you finish school, you've kind of done, you do all this, I mean, you've had a lot of great experiences, right? Great experiences where you've tried things and they've worked. You've learned more about yourself and you've sort of expressed yourself in more and more ways. A lot of it having to do with dance, but it sounds like there's other stuff, sort of magic and sort of sport, and then also just sort of like having friends, having a big group of people. that are sort of surrounding you and lifting you up. What happens after that? How do we get from GeNie graduating from high school till today? What happens?
So after high school, it became the high school to university pipeline, I call it, right? And it doesn't help because my dad is a university professor.
Yes.
Now, I have to tell you, the big reason that I ended up in Winnipeg with my dad getting the job was not just because he got the job, but because staff or either TAs or professors at the University of Manitoba, especially in the Faculty of Arts where he worked, their students could attend university for either half price, a quarter of the price, and sometimes some situations completely free. Right?
Okay.
So it became a situation where it's like, I'm going to go to high school, and then when I go to university, which is the plan for him, and myself obviously at the time, it would cost nothing, right? However, in the summer of 2006, the Faculty of Arts, the professors that were there at the time, went on strike. It was a big U of M strike that was happening with the Faculty of Arts.
What is your dad? He teaches at the U of M?
He's a professor at the University of Manitoba in the social work department.
Okay.
Right? So his department essentially goes on a massive strike in the summer before we arrive, right? Wow. And they're fighting with the dean on whatever it is what they wanted, right? Less theses or less work, or I don't know. I have no idea.
Sure.
But they came to a resolution, and the strike ended, and they got whatever it was that they wanted, but in exchange, they gave up that half price whatever for their kids to attend University of Manitoba. They gave it up, right? Because some of them are in their 60s, 70s, don't have kids that are attending.
Yes.
My dad did. So by the time I even show up, that plan was out the window.
Wow.
So now I have to pay full price in 3 years when I go. However, graduating from high school, as much as we want to not admit it, like, we don't know what we're really going for. It's just what you do, right? Yeah. So I had no idea. He just said, go sign up. Here's the portal. Boom. So I'm just like, I have no idea what my plan is here.
Going to university.
Yeah, but I'm just going to go, right? So U of M has this program called U1. You take whatever you want, see what you like, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
Well, I took whatever I wanted and went from there and ended up basically doing U1 for 3 years, right? Without any intervention from anyone going, hey, I think it's time to declare a major minor. So I essentially just did 3 years of anthropology, English literature, kinesiology, and film studies, or whatever, right? Just a bunch of random stuff, Yeah. And I wasn't passionate about it. By 2012, when my dance stuff is really picking up, all my eggs are in that basket.
Yeah. But you're doing dance. You graduate from high school. You're going to university, but then you're also doing dance because that's what you're passionate about.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm doing the thing that I want, as well as the thing that.
And what does that look like? The dance that you're doing? So
I'm teaching hip hop at a dance studio called the Royal Dance Conservatory from 2008 to 2011, right? And I entered
right out of high school.
Right out of high school. Actually, I got the job in grade 12, right?
Gotcha.
Which was from the last number that we did. There was a director in the audience, gave me a job on the spot. Cool.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Were you teaching dance before that?
No.
So,
no.
How do you? So you're 13.
Yeah.
You see your sister. You're like playing Pokemon Red.
Yes.
You look up. Your sister's dancing.
Yeah.
You're like, wow. Because you've grown up with hip hop in the kind of the background.
Yeah.
Suddenly you're like, ooh, that's just something connects with you, right?
Yeah.
You start dancing with your friends in Montreal.
Yeah.
Right? Goes really well. Self-taught.
Yeah.
Everything. Move to Winnipeg. Throw a volleyball at someone.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Continue to dance and do magic.
Yeah.
Just like everybody likes you. Must be nice. But you're doing more. Are you like, is this all just, again, more self-taught?
So my sister taught me my first initial grooving steps.
I'm saying you don't have credentials at all.
No, honestly, I don't. I'll get to that, right? But what I was also doing was just recording every music video I could possibly find, right?
Just like drinking it up.
Yeah, so every Michael Jackson, Usher, Britney Spears, I think I still remember those, Hit Me Baby One More Time. I think I still know all the choreography to that video, right? For the youngins out there, anyways.
I mean, that's what hip hop studies is, though, right? It's just a bunch of people that were obsessed with hip hop, soaked everything up, and then we're like, oh, this is the story. Or no one's writing this story. We need to write the story.
It's all being organically created on the spot, and that's kind of my story as well. And that's why I connected with the story of it, because I'm literally doing it on the spot as well, right?
Yeah.
But becoming a teacher was like, okay, I have this 3-year experience of choreographing my friends in high school kind of thing, right? But when the director comes up and says, hey, do you have experience teaching? I have a slot at a studio. Would you like to? She just asked me the question, do you have experience teaching in a dance studio? My mind is like doing like the math, like 23, all these numbers are flashing by, and I'm like, this sounds like an opportunity. So I just look her dead in the eye and I say, yes, I've been teaching for years. Like, no, it wasn't true, right? But I'm like, I'm not gonna let this pass up. Like, will this ever happen to me again? So
yeah, but GeNie is also a very good actor.
Exactly. I looked her right in the eye and I said, let me know what you need. I do this for a living. I'm 16 in high school. Like, what? This is more her problem right now. Like, what are you doing asking a high school kid?
You're like, of course I have.
Yeah. Okay. Between my geometry and English homework, I have time to whatever, right?
Yeah.
But luckily, I was able to co-teach with a woman named Paula Vaskovich at the Rodin Conservatory in Montreal, and she really gave me my instruction on how to actually run.
Yeah.
So I wasn't just thrown to the wolves, right? But after 2 years, she gave the director.
But you also have a ton of just innate ability.
Yeah,
you know how to dance.
It's easy for me to say, like, yeah, I'm kind of a natural. I was able to pick up quickly with her structure on how she runs a room and how she divides 60 minutes into various 10, 15, 20-minute increments. So I was able to pick that up quickly.
Natural at that, but not necessarily a natural at studying anthropology.
And you can be the best dancer in the world and can't teach anything. You know what I mean? Like, you can be the best anything and not know how to break something down, right? So I was able to just connect what I was learning from her as a teacher with my natural ability of movement itself. And then it just kind of all made sense from there, you know?
So then you just start teaching dance.
Yeah. So I taught there from 2008 to 2011. And then in 2011, she gave me my own competitive group, the director at the time. And I choreographed this competitive group, these 5 girls, and they went to a competition and qualified for Dance World Cup, which is like the competition in Winnipeg, but the international version in Montreal. So now, like, we're gonna go to Montreal and I'm gonna take this group. Like, it was like this cool full circle moment for me. To go to my hometown and bring a group with the city. Like, I was so excited for it. I remember calling my mom, like, Mom, I'm coming home, right? Like, you know. And 2 weeks later, I was fired. So cool. Just like that. I was let go 2 weeks after. Your services are no longer needed. The group will be directed by somebody else on staff. All the best to you.
Really?
Yeah. And to this day, it's one of those things that I don't really understand. But I know that for myself and management, we just didn't see eye to eye on various things that I thought were small. You know what I mean? Like, she at one point wanted us to sign contracts of you know, honestly, I don't remember what it was exactly, but it was the kind of contract that I just wasn't comfortable signing. You know what I mean? Because it felt limiting in certain directions. And I told her, I was like, listen, I will continue to teach her, but I'm not signing this contract. Like, this whole, like, it was something about, like, it was an exclusivity contract. So I was also starting to teach in schools, right? So I couldn't go into a random school and do a workshop. I couldn't go, if somebody asked me to come here and do a little pump up thing at their wedding, I couldn't do that.
Okay.
Like, well, you're paying me $10 an hour to teach 2 classes a week. You know what I mean? Like, you want me to be exclusive to this studio? It doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
So I said, no, my career is kind of going somewhere and I can't limit it just to do your 2 hours a week or maybe 3 hours a week, whatever. And I guess that was enough for her to be like, well, then your services are no longer needed. Right the day after I take this, I want to straight up say, this studio to heights that I'd never been to before in regards to qualifying for various competitions, right? So that crushed me. That was like, wow. I've done this dance thing for like 5 years now, and this is like, to me at the time, again, at this point, I'm like, I'm 18, so I'm like, the world is over. Crushing, blow to my ego and my spirit. So at the time, I was also running this event called Dance for MS, which was a charity dance showcase that we started in high school.
Okay.
And it was basically just like bringing various dancers from other schools together to just do whatever number you want. And we raise money for multiple sclerosis, which affects Manitoba people in Manitoba more than anywhere on the planet, right?
Wow.
And one of our gym teachers had MS, so we also wanted to do it in light of our favorite teacher in the whole school, right? Who just supported us through everything that we did. We did it in 2009. I think we had like 14 people in the gym. I think we raised like $12. sent it to the MS Society in a check. We did a great job today, right? And then the next year, 2010, we had graduated, but the school let us come back to do it again. We sold out the gym.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, you guys can't do this here anymore. Like, we can't. So we moved it to the gas station theater. That was 2011.
Wow.
So as I'm choreographing this crew, they qualify, and then a month later is my Dance for MS show, right? Which I was going to have them perform it and everything and that.
Yeah.
So I'm hosting the show at the gas station theater, and I decide, okay, I've done this dance thing, and to me, because of this whole firing thing, I guess it didn't work out. So I decided I'm gonna do a solo performance. I'm just gonna freestyle to this one Usher song for like 5 straight minutes, and that'll be it. Now I'll go hand in my resume at Safeway and call it a day and just go be regular or something, right?
Yeah.
Did my solo, had a good time with it, and then there just also, again, happened to be 4 dance directors actually, in the audience from Winnipeg Dance Force and the Royal Winnipeg Ballet. And they offered me jobs to teach there on the spot. So now I go from nothing to now being the head hip-hop instructor at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet and Winnipeg Dance Force in Transcona, and my career takes a second wind towards what eventually became me now.
Yeah.
So that's what I call like my first like real stumble and pitfall, and like, ouch, this is very painful. I don't think I want to do this anymore. So yeah.
And then an inevitable kind of hit.
And then well, everything just kind of took off from there.
But there was a decision there.
Yeah.
To do a Hail Mary.
Yeah, and just be like, okay,
this is like, I'm going to be happy walking away. I'm just going to put all my cards on the table just so you can see them.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to walk away
and
happy.
tell my story of what it's been like, all my highs and lows, and how I feel honestly like still really raw about what just happened to me. What I thought was my career defining moment at the age of 18 out of high school. Just put my heart and soul on the stage, and then when I was done, I bowed to the audience and I walked off stage, and I was like, okay, cool, all right, let's wrap up this show. And as soon as I walk out of this building, I'm a different guy. Like, this dance thing, I'm putting it behind me, but it didn't let me leave the building. So
Well, I mean, okay, one question that I'd have is why is hip hop important to you?
Wow, yeah. It's the only thing that I've found in my life personally, and everybody has their thing, but it's the only thing that I've found that is not only allowing me personally to have a voice, but I feel was created and designed for the voiceless in the first place, right? Without getting into the nitty-gritty of even the hip-hop history classes that I teach, like, this is an entire culture birthed organically with the sole purpose in mind of creating peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. That's the base of the whole thing, right? So, when you have a New York or a Harlem or a Brooklyn or the Bronx, where this comes from, that is dominated by gang culture at the time, this was organically designed for these people to escape that world, right? What we say in hip hop is that it was never the problem in society; it was actually the solution. And though I didn't grow up like, I grew up around gangs, but not like directly like had to be a part of them or had any dangerous interactions with them. But growing up in the south side of Montreal, I've seen things. And I've seen situations where I could have taken my life left and I wouldn't be here right now. So when dance came along, it was an easy way to almost put blinders on and just completely ignore the noise of where certain parts of my own community were trying to take me and my peers, you know? Just come here with us, like, it'll be cool. And we're just like, this dance thing seems way more interesting and accessible, right? So that's, at my core, that's why it's important to me, is because it sounds like a cliche, but it's what saved and gave me my life, And now through my career and through income, it's what is continuing to give me my life, you know? And it's something that, the reason why it keeps me engaged is that it is one of those things that is forever evolving. Not because of technology, not because a camera changes or because we become more woke, or so to speak, but just the aspect of it forever changes. In dance, there are new moves being created every single day because it's fueled by the human creative side, right? And one thing I tell my students all the time is that, like, the two of the best things about humans is our ability to be creative and is our ability to fester in boredom, which is where creativity is usually going to come from, right? So the more you're bored, the more you have the ability to say, okay, well, how can I fill this boredom? You're automatically going to be creative from there.
Yeah.
So when I teach a student a move, I'm like, I'm waiting for you to get bored of this thing, so creativity takes over and take it somewhere else, right? So it's forever growing and allows me to forever grow. And that's why it's important to me, because it's never going to let me go.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to be...
What's your relationship with learning? I mean, you talk about like also like at the beginning, I mean, again, just thinking about you at age like 13 to 18, right?
Yeah.
The sort of all the osmosis that's happening where you're just sort of like reaching and you know, watching every single dance video that you can, right? Are you still doing that?
100%.
Yeah.
All the time. And I mean, not so much like I'm definitely not sitting there trying to learn the choreography of the Gap commercial, right? Like I'm not doing any of that anymore, but I am consuming way too much media all the time in regards to dance, but it's also because I want to keep myself literally hip to what's going on.
Well, then what's the relationship with learning? Like, how much time do you like, if you're watching a video, do you immediately try to do the move, or do you like sit and watch the video? Like,
I'll sit and watch it, and I've been doing this for so long where my brain just kind of catches on so quickly to what it is, right?
Yeah.
So though, there's a move like, you know, I'll see a backflip. I could watch it 1,000 times and probably not, my body won't just go, now that's what it is.
Yeah.
But I'll understand the mechanics of certain things, right? And that's really where my brain is now, is understanding the mechanics behind things.
Interesting.
And then also learning the cultural context of what they are, because at least if, you know, they say those who can't do teach, I could probably teach anything. I've taught people how to do, you know, backspins or windmills in breakdancing that I technically can't do perfectly myself, but I taught people to do them very, very well, right? So my relationship with learning right now is just, like I said, keeping up to date with all of the new material and products and things that are coming out around hip hop culture, right? Outside of dance, like now as a DJ, I'm keeping up with the new controllers and systems that are coming up, right? Knowing that graffiti art is one of the elements, I'm keeping up to date on how graffiti art is changing across the city, or with murals and professional graffiti artists and writers, right? With music, keeping up to date with all the new rap music and dance music It's like there's so much content, and that's what I'm absorbing, and that's my relationship with learning. I don't have, it sucks to say, I don't have always that much time to physically get in a class and learn from someone.
No. That's what I was wondering about.
Which I'm trying to balance, right? I like my peers teach classes all the time, not all the time, but they're starting to teach classes again. I'm trying to attend those as I'm now also back to teaching myself.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to regain that connection with physical learning.
Yeah.
But because, you know, through being so incredibly busy for the better part of 5 years before the pandemic, to the pandemic there being nothing, to now being gone for 2 years RVing and now being back, I'm trying to now come back to what is my new relationship with learning, and how can I still do it in a way where I'm still absorbing what I need to absorb. Yeah. So I don't show up in a class and someone's like, hey, do you know about this? I never want to be the guy that's like, I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? So
You also seem to have an ability to see things. You know, like when you talk about, I don't know what grade that was in, when you were with a dance group and you went in, there was no teacher. And you were like, hey, why don't we try this? I'm guessing you've done that a lot. And have you always been able to, I guess there's sort of two questions with that. Have you always been able to do that, to see that there's a possibility, or is it just that you do that a lot and a lot of them don't work out and you just remember the ones that work out?
I mean, my dad is both my parents, my mom and dad, they are leaders. Right? So I've seen leadership in front of me. Like we grew up going to so many, you know, Ghanaian functions and African events or whatever, where my dad would be the guy on the microphone. I mean, my mom would be the master of ceremonies at an event, in church or whatever the case was growing up. So I've seen what leadership looks like. And I've always just been so fascinated by it, of like how cool it'd be to also be on the microphone someday, you know? So the noticing the need for leadership in the high school situation, to noticing the need for leadership on, you know, my crew boss when our original director was just like not showing up anymore, like all these instances of being like, I think I have the ability to fill in the gaps here, right? It's all trial and error, you know? And there's been many situations where I've been like, hey, what about this? No? Okay, never mind, you know, right? Like there's many situations like that. But the ones that have worked are the ones that have really stuck and have taught me the lessons. And the ones that don't work teach me those lessons as well, right? But
what do you learn from the ones that don't work?
The ones that don't work, the main thing that I learned from them is my approach, right? Because sometimes things work so often that you're on a hot streak. It's almost like gambling, right? You're like, well, let it roll, baby. I've won 3 in a row, right? And then your fourth one, you lose everything. You're like, probably should have stopped at 3, right? So now it's like, I get to a point where I'm in such a role with certain things that now I walk into a room and I'm like, I go to an event that has nothing to do with me and I'm like, hey, do you need this? And they're just like, no. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but I'll just go back to the audience. Because I bought a ticket, you know what I mean? Like, Tracy's always like, sit down, you're not needed here. I'm like, are they sure? Right? So it's been a lot of success, and then always obviously finding the mature way of stepping back from situations that I'm not needed, like we were talking about before, right? Like knowing when you want to be at the front, knowing when you need to just like be at the back and just let it flow, you know? So that was really cool. And even the last year or two with my crew boss before the pandemic, it was definitely a situation like that where it was like, even being on stage, I was like, I don't need to be on stage the whole time.
Interesting. Have you always been a likable person?
I hope so, but I know
because some people have a lot of that energy. They want to be at the center of something. They want to be involved with whatever's going on, but they don't necessarily know how to calibrate themselves in such a way that they're actually going to be. Some people just want to go and be in that space. But then they don't do anything.
No, I think my ability to balance that and remain likable is because it's kind of like Spider-Man. Like I didn't want this responsibility, right?
Sure.
Like I didn't choreograph or I didn't go to that first practice in high school and going, I'm gonna lead this thing to the promised land. I just went because you asked me to come. And then realizing, okay, this may need some assistance, right? I didn't ask to be given this job at these studios. You've approached me, so there must be something that I'm already doing without trying, so to speak, that is of interest, right? And with Boss, when our director was like not showing up to practice, like I didn't ask to be the director of this team for almost a decade, right? So it's easier for me because it's always just been like right place, right time, stumbling into these things, you know? Like I meet someone who knows someone, and then I get a message to go to this audition, and I'm here. Like I've just been really lucky to almost just be kind of reached out to in various scenarios where I haven't had to try super duper hard. I've just been flying by the seat of my pants and being passionate, trying to do the best I can. And that's what's resonated with people over time. So,
and being present.
And just knowing the moment, right? Like knowing the moment, enjoying the moment, and being as optimistic about the moment as possible, right? Like even though we all don't know where this is going and what this is about, so what? Are we not having fun right now? You know what I mean? Like that's that, right? Like so, like hey GeNie, where's this going? I don't know. Hop on, let's go, right? Like I'll hop on any train to anywhere, right? Like when Tracy was like, I want to go do this course in Texas. Should we buy an RV? Like my question is not like, well, what does it? All right, like let's just go. You know what I mean? So I'm a jump on the train and ask questions later kind of guy, even in positions of leadership. So,
do you have? I mean, is there? I know there's a lot kind of going on, but is there like a central kind of a mantra or a message that you kind of have that you try to live by?
There's so many. Let me pick one quickly.
If you had one to share with the people, to sort of share with the world, what would that be?
Why not? It would just be why not, you know? Like there's so many opportunities that can come from different directions. There are people that have a central focus on what they want to do in life, point A to point B. That the blinders that they have kind of almost limits them to just fun random things that may come about, you know? Me and Tracy joke all the time about people who do their 4-year university degree. They come out of that knowing how to do that one thing and not really knowing much else about anything else, right? So the whole, hey, come, we're gonna go bungee jumping, like, no, I'm here, right? Though I've been passionate about what I've hoped my career would become, I never had a plan. And I, to this day, don't actually have a full-on plan. I have no end game for these things, right? So anything that comes up, my motto is just, yeah, sure, why not? And I got a really cool tip from a friend of mine who basically says, his only questions, and now my only questions is, am I gonna learn something? Am I gonna have fun? And can it help me grow, right? Those are the 3 things that I just live by. And all I need is 2 out of the 3 to basically say, sure, why not? You know, am I gonna have fun? Yeah. Am I gonna learn something? Most likely. Will I grow? Probably not, because I've done this all the time, right? But I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna learn something, so let's go, right? Am I gonna grow because it's taking me out of my comfort zone or making my comfort zone expand? Then yes. Am I gonna learn something? Probably not, for whatever reason. Am I gonna have fun? Boom. Am I gonna have fun? Probably not. It's gonna be very, very hard. I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna grow, you know what I mean? Right? So it's easy to go based on those 3 questions and then just to get to my overarching thing of, why not? Let's just see what happens, you know? And even with acting, when acting became a thing for me in 2013 all the way to now, it was also that same thing, right? Like I was approached by Rebecca Gibson at the Academy of Acting way back in the day to do Rent. And I was like, I don't know what you just said. I don't know what Rent is. I don't know what the Academy of Acting is. I don't know what a musical is. Like, but why not? I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna learn. So let's go and do that. And it took off on its own path, right? So that's my main thing. Is if we can, as opposed to me and Tracy's big thing is like questions often just discourage us from action, right? Like if you have someone that doesn't just go, yeah, go do that and find out, as opposed to like, well, what about this? Yeah. Well, what about this? How are you gonna figure this out? How are you gonna pay for this? Every single one of those questions just makes you less and less excited for it, or you'll get defensive to the point that now you're just gonna go and do this thing out of spite, you know what I mean? And now you're not in the right headspace to truly get the growth and get the lessons and get the fun that it's gonna come from, gonna come from it, right? So me and Tracy we ask very little questions about everything that comes across our desk, and we just go and we report to each other back when it's over, right? Like, hey, that was great. That was kind of whack. I don't think I'm going back there. You know? Like that's it. That's it. Now we know, you know. And
I learned something, and
yeah, I learned something and I grew. Did you have fun? No, but I learned a lot, right? Like, so it makes life super simple that way, and avoids all the overcomplicated things that our brains can do oftentimes with these scenarios. Right? So,
Beautiful. GeNie, thank you so much for sitting down for a cup of hot chocolate.
Yes.
And no, it's always great to see you.
Yeah.
It's always amazing to kind of see what you're up to, where you're at in your travels, or if you're back here or wherever you are. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that. You as well.
Yeah.
Big fan of yours, man. Thank you for always including what you're doing. It's been really cool to watch you and your family grow and just your production company do what they do. And it's been really cool, man. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool.